Key point 1. Ending relationships respectfully. Divorce in the 21st century is a different arrangement than it was decades ago, thanks to the no-fault divorce. The no-fault divorce no longer calls for digging up humiliating evidence on the spouse to prove the case. Before its emergence, couples had to go through the turmoil of scandals and come up with fictional stories to obtain the right to divorce. Whether adultery or cruelty, they had to prove evidence to the court. Imagine having to hire a private investigator who will chase your spouse and try to take photos of them cheating to collect the necessary proof. No, this is not a plot of a Hollywood movie. This was the real and complicated reality for couples wanting to obtain a divorce. Often, if there was no evidence of adultery, lawyers had to devise ways to manufacture it for their clients. Sometimes they would even hire actors to play the role of a cheating spouse to obtain photographic evidence. Even though divorce laws have progressed, the stigma about the procedure remains. We still hold an outdated view of divorce as a process full of accusations, dramas, and blame. Laura Wasser, a renowned celebrity divorce lawyer, says it doesn't have to be this way for the next generation. She believes that we can forget the old divorce stereotypes and try to shift our views about it. After all, divorce is simply about dissolving a family structure while dividing the responsibilities and protecting the rights of its members. A breakthrough in family law means that divorcing couples can go through the procedure painlessly and peacefully part ways. This summary will look closer at how to handle a divorce without stress. Key point 2. Only you can decide when it's time to walk away from a relationship. How do you know it's time to end your marriage? You'll know the time is right when the oppression or pain of being in the relationship exceeds the anxiety or fear of being alone. You are the only one in the world who can tell when you've reached the tipping point in your relationship. Nobody can make that decision for you. Not your mother, not your best friend, not your lawyer, and definitely not the people at your book club. But to make the final decision, you must first consider a few things. First, try to see a therapist, whether alone or with your partner. Dissolving a relationship is just as hard as building it, and the feelings that come with the divorce will be hard to process for both of you. So even if you still decide to part ways after the therapy, you can be sure you tried to save the relationship. Second, do your due diligence on the laws and regulations of divorce in your region. Family law differs from region to region, even without one country. So it would be a good idea to learn about the rules that apply to you. Pay attention to the laws concerning custody, children, property, and finances. Those will matter the most to you in the divorce process. Finally, answer this question honestly. Do you have the financial means to go through a divorce? Money shouldn't hold you back, but it's essential to consider. The cost of staying in the relationship sometimes is much higher than the price of leaving it. The cost of divorce can be substantial, so evaluating your financial situation is highly advisable before kicking off the divorce process. There are two kinds of costs when it comes to divorce. 1. The first costs you must consider are the ones that go to the court and your attorney. 2. All the other costs concern your divorce budget, what you have to pay because of it. Estimate these costs so they don't come as a shock to you in the process. Before going through with a divorce, consider 3 things: counseling, your state's family laws, and the cost of the procedure. Key point 3. Heal from breakups with timely support. Divorce is undoubtedly a stressful experience. The emotional difficulties can leave you reeling. No one should have to go through it alone. The process of divorce takes place in 3 main spheres: legal, social, and financial. Every sphere poses different emotional challenges. Together, they can build up and evoke hard feelings, even if you're completely calm, confident, and rational in your decision to proceed. It'll require an emotional investment. The good news is you don't have to deal with everything alone. It's okay and even necessary to seek support from others. Whether it's a different perspective or words of encouragement, it can help you think and evaluate the situation more clearly. Try to turn the people in your inner circle for support. Friends and family might come to your mind first, so you shouldn't be afraid to rely on them in difficult times. Their support and reassurance in such a situation are invaluable because only they can provide the unconditional love and support you need. But no matter how much your friends and family love you, their firm support mustn't cloud your rational judgment. Your close circle can comfort you, but you also need a realistic outlook. Think of your interests in the matter, even if they don't coincide with the visions of others. Divorce is an emotionally challenging affair, so don't be afraid to rely on the support of others. It's also recommended that you find a therapist you can talk to. Unlike friends and family, psychotherapists don't have any personal interests or bias in the matter, so they can be the ones to help you judge the situation more objectively. They have proper training in supporting people in challenging conditions and can teach you many tools to handle it in the least traumatic way possible. Did you know? There are many support groups for people going through a divorce. A simple Google search will lead you to a support group with people going through the same emotions and challenges as you. Key point 4. To make your divorce process go smoothly, you'll have to lawyer up. When you're looking for a legal representative to protect your rights during the divorce procedure, there's a specific package of skills you should look for. In addition to being experts in their field, they should also be proficient in problem solving, negotiating, and building the right strategy for your case. There are a few approaches to looking for a lawyer. The most solid one is through referrals. If you've already heard about an example of excellent work in a divorce case, this lawyer will most likely repeat the success. Looking for a lawyer on the internet is also a good idea, but always check if they're right for you. Once you have a short list of the best lawyers available, you can make some calls. Before hiring anyone, you should get all the facts straight, including the lawyer's availability, asking price, and terms of cooperation. Don't be surprised if a lawyer charges you for a preliminary consultation. Some don't, but be aware that a lawyer's time costs money. A consultation is a way to figure out if you're a good fit for each other. If everything you discover during your preliminary consultation adds up, it's time to schedule an appointment. It's a good idea to meet in person first, as it'll help you judge more clearly whether it's the professional you want to work with. A lawyer's body language, manner of speech, and overall tone are essential factors that leave an impression both on you and in court later. There are a few things you can do for yourself that will be more important than finding a lawyer you're comfortable working with, and then staying on top of the process every step of the way. Laura Wasser. Remember that you have the right to ask personal questions during this meeting. Find out whether the lawyer has ever been married, whether they've experienced a divorce, and whether they're a parent. Personal divorce experience isn't a requirement for a good lawyer, but it's good to know if they can relate to you on a deeper emotional level. While choosing a lawyer, you shouldn't only look for professional experience. A feeling of emotional comfort and empathy are also important. A sense of shared understanding is invaluable, but it doesn't mean you can transfer all responsibilities onto your lawyer and expect a good outcome. Remember to stay informed and involved in the process, which will benefit your lawyer and your case. Key point 5. Kids inseparably bond you to your ex. Another thing you should keep in mind is that you and your partner you're splitting from will remain bonded through your children if you have any. Your relationships with your children are independent of the ones with your ex-partner. Completely avoiding your ex is only possible once your children reach the legal age of maturity. You'll have to deal with each other one way or another on every issue affecting your children. Their education, where and how they spend holidays, their health, and why, when, and how they're disciplined. Be mindful of your custody terms and co-parenting arrangements to ease into divorce with the kids. First, both parents must answer 2 questions. How often and how much time will they spend with their children? This simple exercise will make it easier to make a schedule that satisfies both. Beware, you might even discover you need less time with your children than you expected. Make sure the plan works for both of you, as you must abide by it once your lawyers file it in court. But as we all know, life doesn't always go as planned. No matter how precise and detailed your co-parenting schedule is, you cannot help a change of plans. Even though it's your shared responsibility to follow the custody plan, you'll have to accommodate each other's emergencies when needed. Both sides have to be flexible to achieve balance and agreement without holding a grudge against each other. Lastly, joint custody means co-parenting. You'll have to tolerate your ex and stay as calm and rational as possible. You'll both have different opinions on parenting the kids, so avoid getting sucked into what you regard as your ex's irrationality, wackiness, or self-indulgent fixations. Don't get too caught up in interpersonal drama with your partner. Parenting is not a competition. Also, don't manipulate your kids against your ex-partner to prove you're a better parent. Be the best parent for your kids. That's what's important. Key point 6. Arm yourself with essential information before going to court. Even though each state has its own set of rules regulating child support, federal law requires both parents to fulfill their children's educational, food, and clothing needs. Before a divorce, you must know the child support guidelines for your state or country. One parent must pay child support to another until the child turns 18 or graduates from high school, unless they become emancipated or marry earlier than this. The payment amounts depend on how much you spend on the child. When splitting assets and liabilities, most states use the community property formula. The spouses are deemed equal owners of all assets, income, debts, and liabilities acquired during the marriage, except gifts and inheritances. The community formula also applies when just one of the partners owns a property or an asset. In other words, splitting everything tangible is 50-50 when the marriage is over. What you bring into your marriage as yours, you take out of the marriage as yours. Laura Wasser. You must start defining exactly how much property you share with your partner. To calculate this, count all your assets before marriage and remove them from your list. Then think about dividing everything you've calculated as shared. Each of you must have an equal share in the end, enough to move on with your lives in separate ways. The exact amounts you end up with might differ. It's essential that both of you feel fairly compensated in terms of economic value. Key point 7. Secure best deals with legal expertise. The final phase of divorce is the process of dissolution. You can arrive at this part and sign in court once you agree on all aspects of the contract. Even if this final settlement doesn't end up ideally for you, remember how far you've come and why you're doing it. Focus on getting the closure you require by officially ending the relationship and getting a chance to move on. Avoid getting caught up on the small details that don't satisfy you within the final settlement. Remember, exiting the relationship as safely and stress-free as possible will ultimately be the biggest prize for you and your children. It's better to remain sane and keep your head high than get stuck on the particularities and drag the process on for years. Determine which aspects are essential for you within the contract and negotiate the rest as quickly as possible. Remembering this will help you resolve the final questions faster and complete the process. You can never cut a perfect deal in divorce settlements and get 100% of what you want. Be reasonable with your negotiations and don't overreach. While it's understandable that you'll want to strive for all you can get, you shouldn't hold on to unreasonable and excessive demands to the point where things get ugly. You can lose out big time if you and your spouse drag each other to court. Looking at the bigger picture, all those arguments and exhausting procedures are not worth your potential gains. In this case, the whole divorce process can become a far bigger emotional and financial burden than needed and hang over your head for years. Accept that you're probably not going to get everything you want, and it's okay. Maintain focus on what's most beneficial for you and your children. That's the main reason to start the divorce procedure in the first place. Work closely with your lawyer to cut the best and fairest deal possible and move on with your life. Conclusion. People get married because they fall in love. Divorce happens primarily when the other partner shows unacceptable behaviors, such as physiological and psychological abuse, excessive drinking, drugs, gambling, and serial or random adultery. It might also be because of a lack of communication or due to a simple reason of partners growing apart. Fortunately, in the 21st century, divorce is no longer the nasty affair it was some decades ago. Dissolving a relationship these days doesn't require anybody to charge someone else with wrongdoing. Blame and mudslinging no longer have a place in divorce. A new form of marriage dissolution called the no-fault divorce has removed the stigma and scandal from divorce and ended the era where couples must give proof of adultery or cruelty to dissolve the marriage. You can walk away from dysfunctional relationships without fearing unnecessary consequences. Once you're ready for divorce, get an excellent lawyer and familiarize yourself with child support, spousal support, asset splitting, and divorce settlement guidelines in your state or country. Focus on the essential parts of your settlement while keeping your interests and those of your children in mind. Strive to obtain the best deal possible and move on from this chapter of your life. Try this. Find someone to talk to when going through a divorce. Having a professional counselor or therapist to confide in during a divorce is good for your mental health. It will give you the objectivity you need to get the best outcome from the entire process. You're not alone with your feelings arising from the divorce. Movies dealing with this topic, such as Marriage Story, could be a tremendous emotional support.